going to jump into this next story, but it's sponsored by Rise Lentless. Now, Rise Lentless is my company. That's right. Big Man has a custom mug. We only sell 15-ounce mugs, but it's awesome. We sell fun and customized mugs for entrepreneurs, side hustlers, and everyone that dares to dream. I started this company, and shortly after starting the business, I started it exclusively for the purpose of talking about it on this channel. Shortly after, I saw a link. I got an ad on Instagram for a Robert Kiyosaki course. Now, I don't have any beef with Robert Kiyosaki, but he does this thing where he puts his name on a course. Or it's not really Robert Kiyosaki. It's some guy that, is using Robert Kiyosaki's name.
Yep.
About how to make money selling mugs on the internet. I was like, hey, I do that.
Yes.
So then it's RISELENTLESS, riselentless.com.
So you felt like you were smart is what you're saying?
I didn't feel like I was smart. I felt like I proved the market of what I was doing.
We are going to actually start doing some small clips, short clips on shows that we've done previously where we've been proven very right.
Yes.
Very correct in some of our premonitions, and we're going to start releasing some of those and recording some of those soon.
Premonitions?
So,
what is this? WB's Charmed?
Hey.
Premonitions.
I watched that TV show, so get out of here.
Of course you did.
The point is, we're going to start doing some of those. So keep an eye open for those kind of things, because there's nothing Danny enjoys more than saying that he's right, obviously.
Yeah, the urban youths call that dunking. I dunked on him, coming out of the last political cycle, all I did was to people who bet me money and then didn't pay, Jimbo, a couple other people didn't pay, because you welched on their bets like scum.
You just calling out these people, huh?
Yep. I just sent them gifts of various NBA players dunking on other people. Like, I just can't. This next story doesn't involve dunking, but it does involve footballs. And Big Man is a fan of footballs, and he coaches his son's footballs teams. And I know nothing about footballs, but I do know a lot about business. I'm a genius when it comes to business. And this is such a fascinating concept I wanted to talk about.
When you say fascinating, here, this is only loosely based on football. So much so that literally the quote from one of these is, I'm not going to even compare it to what I watch on Sundays because it's a whole new sport. Yes, they are using a football, and just look, to clarify for everybody out there that's listening to this, we are talking about the new fan-controlled football league.
Which, by the way, can I just say this much? Dwayne Johnson purchased XFL out of bankruptcy for some fraction of money. It was like...
Of course.
And, it was obviously one of those schemes where the guy who owns XFL was just like, hey, man, pay $8 million and I'll shed all my debt.
Well, it was the wrestling guy. It was Vince McMahon.
Vince
McMahon sold it to The Rock. Right.
Yeah, well, he went bankrupt because he started it in 2020, and that's a sucky year to start a sport.
Bad timing there. Bad timing.
Well, that's just no one could have predicted that. And he went back completely bankrupt. But if this had been the approach of XFL in its rebirth, right, where it's going to be, because give credit to Vince McMahon. I don't care about WWE to say I don't care at all. Not interested. Right. But that guy has an audience that he figured out how to monetize, not just merchandising through his app where you get all of the different events or whatever.
100%.
So, yeah, and I think that he made a mistake. And not a mistake, but I think that this is the innovation that he could have brought to XFL, right? And maybe what they do is they just rip this off and they say, hey, we're just going to be one, and maybe they merge or something. But
well, maybe he didn't have the time to do it either. Because like you said, it was, all right, we're going to have an XFL, which is spring football, right? We're not going to compete directly with the NFL. And look, they've tried this over and over again for the last 20-something years about, okay, the NFL only takes up right? From August to January, February. What do we do about these football lovers? And guess what? Football lovers, they consume this sports talk radio. NFL sports talk radio is year long. It doesn't matter that it's not going on. There are people talking about it and changes and drafts and everything else. So they've tried over and over. Several different leagues have tried. I think when
2019 was the Alliance. There's arena football.
Right. Arena football was around for several. Canadian football is regular football. I mean, that's the Canadian Football League.
I know, but I'm saying there's what's the other one? I think there's arena football, and then there's the Alliance of Football.
Yeah,
the American Alliance of Football that went out of business after a year.
Yeah, and look, they keep trying to restart these because you would think that NFL fans would pay to continue watch football. The problem that I've had, and Austin, years ago, a decade ago, had, they called them themselves the Austin Desperados, played at the Frank Irwin Center, lasted a couple of seasons at that, and it was just... When I went and saw it several times, it was too much of a show for me. It wasn't football. They try to make it very fast-paced. Now, what is fan-controlled football trying to do different? What's their current spin on it that they think that is going to succeed? Fan-controlled football is not just a name, folks. It is fan-controlled. You get to pick the teams. You get to pick the players. You get to pick the plays that they play. Right. This is all going to be done through an app. Through Twitch is where you're going to be able to watch these on TV. Every week there's going to be 2 core players that every team has, probably a quarterback or you know what I mean, another. Right. They're going to have a third protected player, and if you play fantasy football and you have protected player leagues, you know what this is. So they're going to have 3 players that are the same on each given team, but every other aspect of the team is going to be drafted weekly. Now, they're going to do it in chunks. That you can't draft individual. This is going to actually, they drew all this from fantasy football, right? Is what they did.
That's what I'm saying is genius about this. And again, I'm a marketing business genius, and that's, a big brain.
Big fantasy football fans are going to understand what this is like a lot. They're going to know. So when I say they're going to draft every week, every team each week is going to draft an entire offensive line together. Right? They're going to draft an entire defense line together. There's these bulk players. They're not going to do individual names each week. They're going to do bulk players where the teams can be drastically different from week to week other than those 3 core players, right? And that is controlled by the fans. The fans are going to vote and draft and that kind of stuff. Even down now, and again, I don't know how this is going to work in real time. I really don't. They kind of go into some of the explanation because when I saw in here, okay, wait a minute. Fans are going to choose the plays? You're talking real time. How long are you going to have in between plays that you're going to let people, decide on plays, and how you're going to accumulate that? It's 7-on-7 football versus 11-on-11.
Right.
50-yard field, so half the size.
Yeah, I knew all of that information.
You know what I mean? Well, but not everybody may.
I'm kidding. I had no idea what you're talking about.
But and here's one that I thought was crazy, and I've never heard of this even mentioned. A lot of these rules people have talked about before, right? But this one I never. There's no extra point. There's no kicking. There's no goal posts on this football field. Okay, no kicking. There's no field goals. There's no kicking an extra point after. What they're doing after a touchdown is they're going to do 1-on-1 wide receiver against a D-back. Quarterback has 3 seconds to throw the ball.
So they're being really creative. They're crafting a unique experience that, like you said, Desperados and other people have tried, but what they didn't do was engage their audience. We talk so much on the show ad nauseum. Point I want to puke. Oh, it's the audience. And I think that is so key here.
Can you not say audience that way when we're trying to build an audience? Can you seriously not do that? But go ahead.
You don't want me to do my Robert De Niro face?
Yeah, you're an idiot. Go ahead.
Okay, I know, but I'm just saying that FCF has done something here that, and I say this often, is that the first mover advantage is not always the advantage
Correct.
because these guys might not be capitalized well. Their idea might not fail because it's a bad idea. It might fail because of the lack of the capacity to execute it well. But a guy like Vince McMahon or now Dwayne Johnson or what have you, or larger interests could go, hey, you ding dongs are onto something. Because guess what? Have you guys ever heard of Magic Taxi? Big man, you ever heard of Magic
No.
Taxi?
What is Magic
Interesting.
Taxi?
Uber before it was Uber. Like Uber,
Okay.
there's a company called Magic Taxi that does what Uber did. Just sucked. Sidecar also sucked. You've never used these apps.
Right. Well, and look, they are really trying, because here's two things that they are attempting in today's world, and this wouldn't be available 10 years ago. The
Right.
technology wouldn't have been behind it.
Exactly. Like
So
yeah.
they're embracing the fan, right, by giving them them a say in how this works. But the second thing they're doing is bringing out why is fantasy football so popular? It's the competitive aspect of it, and they're bringing that in here. You're going to literally they're developing an app to go along with this, where
Right.
it's not Twitch. Twitch is where you're going to see it,
Right.
But how you have a say in your team, how you have a say in the plays, is going to be through what they're calling their Fan IQ app, which you're going to get a Fan IQ score. Meaning that if you select plays, they run those plays, and those plays do well, your Fan IQ score goes up. And you think there's not going to be prizes and everything
Right,
else
of
handed
course.
out on a weekly basis?
They are in the app industry what we would call gamifying. They are gamifying
100%.
the experience of being a football fan. And I think this is groundbreaking because you all know the NFL 2020 notwithstanding, was having a rough go of it simply because some
Right.
people felt as political stuff. I'll just leave it at that because I don't
Sure.
really and they were seeing viewership in the toilet, not in the toilet, but in the toilet for the NFL.
Right.
And I think that the younger fan is going to go, hey, why would I watch? Like, this is, who cares? Like, I'm going to watch some dumb old football team when I can watch fan control, But I do think fan controlled football, it's good branding, it's good marketing because it tells you exactly how it's different. But I think it's short term. But
Well, look, NFL is king, right? In the
Yeah.
United States of America. NFL is king, which is why they would never dream of trying to start one of these during football season. You can't go head to head with the king. You just can't, right? So that being the case, they're always going to do this in the offseason. I think there's a lot of questions on this. I mean, they're going to be playing games on Saturdays for 6 weeks. So it's a 6-week trial, right?
much shorter season, right? How long is NFL?
Well, they're about to
13,
start
right?
17 weeks, 17 games instead of 16. They're going to add a 17th game next year.
Yeah,
So
because they're running out of they're trying to juice this thing for all it's
yeah,
worth.
it just adds another game. They just signed a new network deal, right? Another network deal just signed for something like trillions of dollars. I mean, it's insane, right? It's insane. Amazon is going to carry
Yeah.
Thursday Night Football, right? But anyway, look, so this kind of league obviously doesn't have access to that kind of money,
No.
right? Obviously, so 6-week season. Probably this is its first season, so they're going to try this. I would be I'm going to watch this from a standpoint of business, not really football, because it's not going to compare to football. It's going to be a cluster, in the beginin.
Right.
I
well,
think this is a great idea, and I'm going to see how this actually works out with this fan-controlled aspect. Logistically, this could be a nightmare, right, with how it's going to go. They're going to try to keep these games under an hour, 2 20-minute halves, and with a rolling clock, meaning they only stop the clock if there's a touchdown, something like. So they're going to keep that clock going, right? People complain about the NFL, it stops too much, right? Which is why really a 60-minute clock game lasts for 3.5 hours in NFL because of how often it stops. They're trying to keep these games under an hour with 2 20-minute halves, so 40 minutes of play, get it in under an hour because we're not going to stop the clock very often. I doubt there's going to be anything like replay or right? Or whatever. It's going to be whatever the ref calls at the time. That's going to be it. Probably not a lot of rules like the NFL is a bunch of rules. They're probably not going to have a lot of rules.
Right.
And they're just going to keep at it. But I think from a trying to get people to interact, choose plays, all this
Yeah.
kind of stuff in real time, is that first game's going to be interesting.
Right. And I let me just relate it to something I understand better. The NFL, the way you describe it, sounds like going to buy a car in the '90s. The value proposition they felt was longer we keep you here, the more invested you are. Right.
Sure.
Whereas the modern thesis is the quicker we get you out the door, rage quit. In gaming, it's called rage quit, where you're like, this is
Sure.
too hard. I'm quitting. And I think maybe the thesis they're working under is that, hey, listen, people are they're disenfranchised from the NFL for a handful of different reasons. These are football fans. We can capture their interest. If we don't make it such a large investment of their life, right?
Yeah.
We can still monetize their interest in sport.
Well, and I think they definitely have some new ideas in it. They're only starting off with 4 teams, where traditionally, like the XFL was going to have, I think, 8 or 10 or something like that.
Yeah.
Like the whole was to broaden, trying to get buy-in from a bunch of different places. This, in the unique way that they're doing this, having the fans involved, I think they're doing the smart thing. We're going to have 4 teams.
Yep.
They're not going to be specifically tied to cities. They're just going to be these 4 different team names, which
Right.
are, by the way, the Glacier Boys, the Zappers, the Beasts, and the Wild Aces. It may be the 4 worst named teams I've ever heard in my entire life.
The Wild Aces are fun. That's fun.
The Wild Aces are okay, but Beasts and Zappers and the Glacier Boys? What is this?
Yeah.
A 1980s, motorcycle street game?
No, like the Glacier Boys sound like one of those, like in the '90s, how they made all the gangs on TV multiracial, even though that's not how gangs work. And it's always like someone swinging a chain coming in, like the Glacier Boys are coming out to play.
It's awful. The only really big names you would see in football are on the ownership side. Marshawn Lynch is part. You know what I mean? Beast
I
mode.
thought they were trying to talk him into it, and he didn't want to.
Yeah, he's one of the owners of one of the teams. That kind of. So the big names that you would notice from football are on the ownership side. They're not on the playing side. The only name that anybody would really recognize on the playing side is Johnny Manziel. Is one of the quarterbacks for one of the teams.
Johnny Football,
right? And making his big football comeback in the fan-controlled football league.
Wasn't he in the? He was also in the AAL or whatever that was called, the American whatever league.
Yeah, he was supposed to be, right? But
he didn't play.
No. So this is his first. So this is the whole point. He's the only guy you would recognize. They're not paying these guys a lot of money. I mean, they're purportedly paying these people $350, $400 a game. You know what I mean? So it's.
I'm not getting bopped in the head for $400, dude.
Well, you have what are people doing this? These are people that either A, can't play in the NFL, or maybe they played in college, right? This is not there's a lot of small leagues around the country. There's one here in Leander. They're called the Leander Lions, which are they call themselves a professional football team. And what are they? They guys that some of them used to play in the NFL, some of them are previous college players or whatever, and they play a bunch of other Texas football teams. They play at the high school here in one of the high schools here in Leander. They have a small fan base that comes out and watch them bash each other's heads in for basically free. It's kind of like softball, right? These guys that play softball into the 30s and 40s, right? Sometimes people just want to do stuff, and hey, let them,
fine.
But and they play traditional 15-minute, hour-long football. So I mean, it's a cool thing to take the kids and let them watch, grown men bash each other's heads in. So these guys aren't getting paid a lot of money to do this. So I don't know what kind of product we're gonna get, but like I said, it should be at the very least it's a new way. So I, like you, always appreciate a good marketing stunt.
Right.
A good marketing idea. And look, if this works, guess what? You're going to see a whole bunch of people out there copycat it.
Of course, yeah. And my curiosity is do they introduce the concept? Do they get it to a point where it's accepted by the audience, where the NFL goes, we're going to adopt some of this?
Oh, not what that NFL will never be fan controlled,
Oh, no,
but
of
if
course
they
not.
can figure out a way to copy an app that
Yeah,
allows you to have real-time interaction with, let's say, coaches, or you know what I mean, assistant coaches, or right, some kind of way to interact with the NFL in some way,
right.
they would do it 100%.
Yeah,
Especially if they could charge you $10 a pop to do it.
yeah, of course.
Right, so I think it's going to be interesting to see what comes out the other side, because even if this fails, if they can prove concept in some sort, like you just said, we talk about stories all on here all the time where these people are paying crazy amounts of money for unproven ideas,
Yes.
right? And if the fan controlled football league comes out the other side of this 3 months from now, 6 months from now,
And they
with
just
an
sell the
unproven
technology.
idea, and then they just
Right.
go, hey, NFL, you want this app because it can do A, B, and C for you, they'll make billions of dollars,
Yeah,
right?
totally.
And that kind of thing. So I applaud them for the
Yeah,
innovation. I'm curious to see how it's going to work out.
same.
Don't
I think
agree with
it's,
me, Danny. It makes me nervous.
well, no, I'm just saying that I think that it's like, the effort is, even if, like I said, even if they don't execute it to where, the fan controlled league is successful, they're on to something, and that's what's important. And in closing, I just want to say this much: the next revolution that we're going to have in the economy is the crypto and blockchain revolution,
No, it's not. But go ahead.
and I lament it, because all I've ever wanted to do in my life was do a business deal where I carry around a briefcase full of cash. I don't think I'm ever going to be able to do that. This is Idiots versus Idiots. Thank you very much, and we'll see you on the next one, folks.
As usual, Danny's wrong. He's an idiot. We'll see you next time, folks.